These are the two Sungold 11.4 kilowatt inverters installed in parallel. I have this wire tray that goes in. That's a load center. Main circuit breakers on the other side of the wall here. I have two breakers, 60 amps, one to go to each inverter, and then I have just disconnect switches here to just power off each one if I need to from here instead of going back to the breaker box. I also installed the emergency switch on it, so if something goes on they can power it down quickly. The display is just a display. It shows everything. You can see the solar, and then the gen I have as a smart load output. And same with this one. And the smart port outlet is ran in parallel, so they both work together off their fuse. Go inside. This is the main one, so it's got the CT clamps going into here, the battery cables go to each one, the BMS is in here, and the communication to both sides, the inverter. I did use a 4-aught wire, which is really a lot of fun to run through everything. So this panel has all of the loads that are on the backup side. So the backup part of the inverter. So if the power goes out, it keeps the backup on, and then the smart load will stay on. And you can set parameters in Solar Touch to adjust that to when it would turn off. So I have that Solar Touch to higher drawing things like the AC and stuff like that. Everything runs real good off these. There is a few things I'll go with the app in just a second and show you guys the app and how to get things set up that way. I do have the solar panels connected into these two. I do have SMA inverters also, but those are I'm just using these 11.4 kilowatt. It's very similar to the all-in-one that Midnite Solar has. I just say similar in functionality and what they do. I also have a Raspberry Pi hooked up so I can do Solar Assistant to monitor everything. I found that works really well. They're still working through some of the bugs, but I'll go through that too. So this is the Solar Touch app. It works pretty good overall. So you create a name. First, when you get into it, you want to do Bluetooth connection. You can just go and then click manual connection. And it'll show your inverters up there. 115 is my main first inverter. 116 is the parallel one. So just connect to it. That'll show you the power that's going. When you first start up, you want to go through the quick setup and connect to your Wi-Fi and do all that. You just gotta make sure those Wi-Fi modules are connected in your thing. Do all your parameters. And also on a side note, when you connect these, if you have parallel units, you can only do one at a time, so you got to put them in single mode and then connect to the Wi-Fi. And then put the other one in single mode and connect to Wi-Fi, and then go back to parallel mode. Set up as backup and batteries pylon setting. And then here you can remote turn it on and off. So go back to home. If you click on each thing, like the solar, we'll click on that one. It'll show you the solar, what it's doing. So DC input right there, the amps and the volts that it's at, and the kilowatts. Each one of these, the grid, what it's doing. As you can see, it's backfeeding to the grid. The load on this once in a while works. I don't know what's going on with that, but even with the CT clamp, sometimes it just doesn't detect the other load that's going on there. I'm working with Sungold on getting some of this stuff fixed with them, so it should be better in the future. They're pretty good. working to get things corrected. All the battery information and BMS details there, and then the backup load, which is the gen, which is the smart loads and what watts that's put now. I did notice that the gen, when you have the smart loads, even the backup loads, is leg 1. Like if the watts are really low, it'll do leg 1 off this one and leg 2 off the other one and provide the power that way. I've seen that quite a bit. And then the parallel machines here underneath the main one too, with the details that go from there. Go to the console. You want to make sure when you first get in to log underneath the administrator password, which is super admin. So that's all lowercase, super admin. And then you do that, then you're able to access all the different things in the app. You're not limited, has everything opened up. Communication settings, not a whole lot you can do in there. It'll give you the router settings. If it's not set up, you need to go back to that quick start to get that figured out. All your grid parameters. So first time connect, I changed that to 30 seconds from 60, and then reconnect delay, I just have 15 seconds, and it'll just count down from 15 instead of taking like the whole minute that it's preset at. But yeah, you can go through all your different settings here and change those if you need to. Feature parameters. Here you can change what you would like to on this. Kind of just kept it the way it is. Power limit. I have the CT sensor. You can do on that. You can do an external device or digital power meter if you have the power meter option, or disable it altogether. Where your meter's at, I just have it on grid, and flow from grid to inverter. So there you can set the max feed in to the grid. I have it on 10,000 on each of these. If you do it to like 6,000, it'd be 6,000 each for 12,000. So keep that in mind if you have any limits with the power company of how much you can back feed into the grid. If you don't want to feed any, you can put 0 there, and then it'll not feed any back to the grid if you have the CT sensors installed. Max permit consumption. I did up that. I think it was at 200. I just put up to 400, so I could pull that much just consume from the grid. Your reactive power, not much you can do on that one. Other settings. So these are all the other settings that you can do. I'm not using these settings. Hybrid settings. This is probably where most of you guys will use stuff. Work mode. I have backup mode. You can do self-consumption mode, feed-in priority mode, the backup like I'm doing. Also with this, you can do time-based control. So I turn that on, and you can decide when to charge, and you can actually discharge your battery, set how much watts you want to, and discharge to like 85% is what I have on there. So just a couple settings that way, which is pretty handy to use. Battery. If you're connected right, this will connect to your battery. You can change all these settings of how much you want to charge, discharge, capacity of charge and rate, 98%, discharge and 89%. Which with that discharge rate, this is when you're on grid, so I'm actually going to change that and just go like 25%. So it'll come down to. So it'll set that. So when you're on the grid, you can change those state of charge numbers. So if you want to keep it full, that's just what I'm doing, just in case there's a power failure, then we're pretty full, so it's not empty. Charge by grid, you can turn that off if you don't want to charge by grid, you just want to charge by solar. If you have that on, you can of course put your different settings of how much power you want to charge the batteries with. So Backup load, just a couple settings there for voltage, what variation you want on that. The generator, like I said, I have the smart load output. You can change that to disable that port. Generator input, smart load, or inverter input, which is if you have the AC coupling, then you can AC couple and inverter input that way. I've chose with my inverters, I'm just keeping those as backup. If something goes wrong, then I can just switch over to those and I'll feed the grid. So I did find out on this part, the smart load, you will want to go to each inverter and activate that, and then they'll both kick on and both have that same setting of whatever you put in the main one. The second one will act the same for your parameters when the grid goes out and the solar, like the battery goes down to like 50%, then I have it turn off the smart load output. Other settings here, parallel mode, you want to make sure you have that on before you kick them both together. So you turn on the main one and just turn that on, then reset it and turn it back on. You can change the battery if you want parallel or if they're independent now. These are in parallel. You can turn the buzzer on. Capacity mode, I do state of charge because my BMS is working. If your BMS is not working, I would advise using voltage, and then you can adjust the voltage parameters and set your battery to the based off of what volt it is, if you don't have that communication, and do lead acid on that. So anyway, that's pretty much the app. We go out of this and go back here. Monitoring is the only thing they have activated. The service is not working. I'm working with them to see if we can get the service to activate, just so you can make changes instead of being next to it with the Bluetooth. So the monitoring uses the Wi-Fi, so you can remote anywhere. You'll want to, the top right, do the plus to add your home or whatever you're doing. And then here you'll add each inverter. So you just do the plus, and then it'll walk you through the steps of how to do that inverter. It'll ask for the serial number, and then it'll connect to it that way. And this, you can click on the main one. This is what you'd see. One thing I did notice is it's not accurate. It just shows each inverter. So this is just the data for this one inverter. You don't have a lot of options per se in here, but it does have some little charts. So you have to click the other one, then you'll see what that inverter is actually doing. So that's one disadvantage. I wish it was combined together, because that would make it a lot more easier to use. So okay, now I'll just show you a quick overview of Solar Assistant with these inverters. So this is Solar Assistant. It's an add-on. They just barely did this in their beta version. So with this, you can see how your inverter is doing. It does combine everything. The only thing it's not doing right now are a couple of things, but like the load, that's just your backup load. It's not your doing like my smart port. It's not configuring that into this calculation. But you can click on each one of these. Quick overview will show you each inverter, what they're doing, all the solar power, battery voltage, what it's withdrawing right now. On this, the temperature is not right, but it is pretty cold, but not that cold here. And then your grid power, how much is back feeding for my situation right now. Battery, just some basic information. Really good. I would highly advise this. Once they get it figured out, they'll have everything to where you can go to settings and actually make settings remotely. They're really good to work with for that. So with Solar Assistant, that's all your stuff there. The model, you can click on Synergy for these inverters. So when you go you have to disconnect. And then you can click which inverter you have. They don't have SunGold in here, but Synergy is the one you want to use, and it'll connect to that. So that's a basic overview of the solar assistant. So you can see my solar inputs 3,900 watts, back to the grid is 21. So basically that difference is how much my other loads are, but it's not computing at this point. So I'm gonna go ahead and kill the power to it, then you can kind of see what it's doing, and we'll get back into that app so you can see the way it's working. So I'm doing this one hand, so set you down. So now it's off, power's still on, lights are still going. You can see on the display, no grid. So it's supplying the home load that's showing right there. And same with this on this side. No grid. So doing that, you can see right here on this side, because it flashes through each thing. That's how much solar I have. That's the battery voltage. That's the battery percent, 98%. 20 kilowatts today, 228 total. And then on this side is just your power, leg 1, leg 2, what it's providing. I said it's for each inverter, it's not combined into one. I kind of wish it would do that, would have that option. It'd be kind of nice, but I understand why on the inverter it would be different. So that's all. So I'll go down and show you the app and what it's looking like. I'll go to the Bluetooth first, just so you can see what all the information on that. So here you can see the grid's off. And supplying the smart load and the backup. But not the home load. So here we can see AC is doing that. Battery currently just charging at that. So yeah, you have all the information of what it's doing. And if you go into the Wi-Fi, you see the same information. You just can't make the changes. So same information. You go to overview, that'll show everything on it. Kind of cut back to the solar just because of it's just charging the battery, so and supplying the load rather. So go back. I'll go back to. I'll show you on camera when it does the countdown when you get power back to the load. Okay, I'm going to turn the power back on to the inverters, and I'll show you the countdown stuff when it reconnects. So here on the grid, yep, it just switched over. So now you can see the power is going from the grid into the batteries. And then it'll switch back to the solar, will increase back up and backfeed the grid, which is doing right now. So that's it. This is 11.4 kilowatts. I've been pretty impressed. A couple little bugs like I talked about as far as communication, but as far as functionality, they're working really well. Smart load output is a really nice feature. I just like that because if the power goes out, then my high demand loads won't turn on if the solar or the battery's under a certain percentage. So anyways,